The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooalong Transformation Centre. And that was Gorvy here on 94.9 Rima Central Coast. It's Wednesday morning. You will not be shocked or surprised if I say we've got one of our guests from the Dooalong Transformation Centre out at Dooalong sitting opposite me. And today it's Lisa. Good morning to you, Lisa.
Hi, Phil.
Lisa was here last week, but she was acting in her capacity as chauffeur when Karen was here. Karen's here now acting as chauffeur for Lisa, so they've just a bit of role reversal going on. So this week we get to Lisa, who's been at Dooalong now for how long is that?
About 4 months. I got there in May.
You got there in May, so yeah, it's not really. Is that halfway through? Possibly not.
Yeah, about halfway.
About
hopefully.
halfway through, yeah. And where are you from, Lisa? Are you from the Central Coast?
No, I'm a Newcastle girl.
Novocastrian?
Yes, through and through.
Yeah. Look, you get people from all over Australia, don't you, at Dooalong? So you're probably considered a local, aren't you, I would think?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to local.
Yeah. Do you have family close by?
I do. My mum and my son both live in Newcastle.
Oh, that's good. Do you get a chance to visit them?
Yeah, I go home most weekends, so I'm very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah. What brought you to... I mean, we love having you guys here because it's so inspirational, the stories, and they give us hope. But really, you wouldn't have wanted to go to Dooalong if you had a free choice. What happened in your life? Where did it start going south for you that you found yourself in Dooalong?
It's probably a combination of things. I'd had a really fortunate life. I'd been very blessed to have a loving family. I'd had a great relationship and stuff. And when life started to throw a few challenges my way, I didn't cope so well. And
because we get to talk to a lot of guys and girls who have had sort of, I think the word is challenging, sort of difficult childhoods, and to some extent you can see, look, I know why you turned to drink. You know, I could see that, you know, that would be an option for you in that situation. But you're saying you had a really good childhood, a really good upbringing.
Yeah,
privilege.
I did. My mum was, she was a single mum, but she was fantastic. It was just my brother and I. We were born in the same year. Oh. So I'm February, he was December. And then she figured it out, and that was it.
Yeah, enough is
but
enough.
it was just the three of us, and we were really tight. And so I was a very stable, very loving background. Yeah, I was very fortunate.
Which reminds us that this disease of alcoholism that we'll talk about, it is a disease. It doesn't recognise boundaries like class or social divides or anything like that. Anybody can get this disease. Oh,
absolutely. And you can achieve a lot of things. You know, I'd been to university, I'd been married for 17 years, I'd ticked all the boxes, I had a very stable, functional life.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the coping skills for when things didn't run smoothly. And life has a way of... life, a wholehearted life is the good and the bad and the ugly, and I didn't cope so well with those things.
At what time of life did things start to sort of become, that word again, challenging for you?
Yeah, it was about 2010 when my marriage was breaking up. We lived in Brisbane. We lost all of our possessions in the flood.
Oh, yes.
So I came back to Newcastle with my 2 boys and nothing. Literally, we got on a plane with our suitcases. A few years later, I was in another relationship, and I had a miscarriage with twins when I was 14 weeks pregnant, and then I was very badly assaulted, and just a couple of things happened in quick succession, and I didn't really have the ability to process those things and to work through and heal from them, and because I just ran away from them.
Yeah, because they all sound really traumatic incidents that, with the benefit of hindsight, you might have thought, perhaps I should get some counselling here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that was certainly, one of the things we learned at DTC was connectedness and asking for help, and I was much too proud. I didn't know how to, even when people offered, I had loving people in my life, but I didn't know how to say yes, I needed help.
You are very independent, you're a fixer-upper rather than a seeker out of help?
Yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah. So what did you do when, your marriage is falling apart, the house that you had the hopes and dreams for in Brisbane, that all falls apart, you come south, you're assaulted. What do? You turn to the drink at that stage?
Yeah, Yep, I just, and I still worked. I still had, I considered myself functional. I didn't identify as an alcoholic at all because although I drank every day and I drank to excess every day, and bit by bit my relationships and my ability to work and stuff was devolving. But because I got up and I went to work and I did things in my mind, I just was like a lot of other people that drank too much. But, an alcoholic was someone different to me.
Yeah. You would have classed yourself as a heavy drinker?
Yeah.
But no more than that.
Yeah, and even then I just thought I was okay, I would say, well, look at all those tradesmen that come home from work and they have 3 long necks or they do whatever they do.
Yeah.
I'm just having a couple of glasses of wine, which is a bottle of wine, which becomes over time 2 bottles of wine. Yeah.
But we try to justify things to ourselves, don't we?
Oh, yes, certainly.
Yeah. And how long did that go on for?
That went on for a couple of years. And as it started to impact on my life, I knew that I needed to change things. That's when I went to my GP. I told him, most of what was going on. I started taking Anabuse, which is a medication that you can't drink on.
Okay. Some of our listeners may not have heard of that. I'm not all that familiar with it myself. Anabuse, did you say?
Yeah, Anabuse. Yeah. So it works by turning off the enzymes in your liver that process alcohol. So when you take that medication each day, you literally are just horrifically ill if you drink while you take that. So it just takes drinking as an option off the table.
Yeah, because if you drink on this medication, you're violently sick.
Yeah, so you can't be tempted or not cope with a situation, and so you pick up, which is what I would do. I'm totally overwhelmed by these feelings. I don't know how to sit with them. I'm going to numb them. I'm going to pick up.
Yeah, that's not an option when you're on.
No, you have to actually just work through it.
Yeah. So, but that obviously wasn't enough for you, or perhaps there are other things that happened later in life.
Yeah. I think so that probably in that instance I was definitely sober while I took that, but I was like now what I find out you call a dry drunk. So I didn't drink, but I didn't address any of the reasons that I had been drinking. They were all still there and still unaddressed and still really a source of pain and trauma that was just not being dealt with at all.
Yeah.
And my brother died by suicide after that, and I actively chose to stop taking the medication and to self-medicate and to be as drunk as I could possibly be.
Yeah. It was a deliberate choice on your part. The pain of your brother's death was too much. I want to get drunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you stopped taking the drugs and
yeah.
Does it spiral out of control from there further downwards?
Oh, very quickly, because I was already not coping. So I was already totally overwhelmed by life, already didn't know how to reach out to people, even though I was surrounded by loving people that I'd known most of my life that were really worried about me.
Yeah.
But I still didn't know how to let my guard down and say that I needed help. And I didn't want to, because then I would have to sit with all this stuff that was too painful to sit with. And if I just drank, then bit by bit, even as I alienated more and more people and my relationships failed, well, then people stopped asking me painful questions and I could just stay in a really horrible place.
What prompted you to get in touch with Dooalong? Did you reach cliche, did you reach a rock bottom?
I don't know if you ever reach a rock bottom, but my life had spiraled so completely out of control by then. I was homeless. All of my relationships had pretty much been destroyed. I was totally removed from my family, my mum, my children, at a time when they needed me the most, and I needed them. But that's part of the addiction, is when you're not actively trying to be as numb as possible, you're filled with self-loathing and, I didn't understand why I couldn't stop. I just thought that it was a matter of willpower. And so then I would just be even more disgusted, and then I'd look at the people that I loved and that I knew loved me and just saw the hurt and the confusion, and they didn't understand why I'd become this person. I didn't understand. I didn't know how to fix it. They didn't know how to fix it.
It all feeds in, doesn't it? To a perfect storm.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It was, so in the end I was homeless.
And you were literally homeless. You were sleeping on the streets, were you?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't have any experience with homelessness before that. So, at meetings now, I would sort of joke with some of the ladies that I thought I coped amazingly well because I'd never been in any kind of situation. So I lived. I slept on trains most of the time so that I would be dry and out of the weather, and mostly I was safe. Some of the time because I was completely unemployed and couldn't maintain a job by that point, so I'd have to show up to work for the dole some of the time so that I could still have some money. Those days I would sleep in the parks so that I could get to the places I had to go to on time. I was very violently
assaulted.
Assaulted in a park one night, and I finally had to, speak with a doctor and medical people, and of course, anyway, from there I went to detox at Lakeview at Belmont Hospital, and I was just, by the grace of God, a bed became available, for all the hundreds of people on the waiting list for DTC, a bed became available while I was there, and I was able to come to Dooalong.
You said that you're one of those people who find it difficult to ask for help. You struggle on your own. You like to fix other people rather than yourself. How hard was it for you to go to the GP and say, "Doctor, my life's out of control. I need help. I'm helpless."
And I had actually gone there for. I kept thinking that I could do everything on my own. So I'd gone there to get some more abuse and try and do it on my own. And of course, they had my records, and they had the records from the hospital. And he'd been my GP for a long time, and he just said to me, "What is going on? And we need to fix this. We need to at least try to do more than this, Lisa." And I was very lucky that he'd been my GP for a long time, and so even then I didn't know how to ask for help.
If he hadn't offered, you wouldn't have asked.
No, I just thought I was going there to do it on my own, and and of course I wouldn't have been able to because I was completely avoiding all of the reasons that I was an alcoholic.
And so, by the grace of God, you didn't have to wait terribly long after your detox, and you get into Dooalong.
Yes, I was.
And that was just 4 months ago, 16 weeks ago.
Yes, I just feel incredibly grateful. I was so hopeless. Homelessness is hard on you physically, but mentally and emotionally, my mental health just devolved so quickly. You don't sleep. The few hours that you do sleep aren't quality sleep. No. It's and I'd become quite suicidal by then. I was so hopeless. I just didn't know how to get back, and my old life just seemed so near but so far. And I just
and as you said when we started chatting, you had a really sort of good upbringing. You come from a good family. You couldn't have imagined all those years back that you would end up homeless and hopeless.
And I think that was pride was one of, so I really struggled with another reason that I struggled asking for help was I just it was so hard for me to accept, because I always thought of addiction as something that happened to other people. And
it's a weakness.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's been a huge learning curve to have to come to terms with a lot of stuff. And you have to do that to be able to heal.
Otherwise the reasons that led to the "I need a drink," they're going to still be there unless they're dealt with and processed. And
that's certainly, I drank not to feel, so I could avoid the reality of situations and the reality of life, and obviously that doesn't give you a very meaningful, and I'd probably always done that, and that's why I didn't cope with the trauma when it came along. Like, life ultimately catches up with you, I think.
Hey, we're so glad that you went to that doctor on that day, and so glad that he mentioned sort of rehab for you and sort of detox, because it quite literally has probably saved your life.
The Salvos and DTC have saved my life, and reconnected me with they don't just save one life, I think they save whole families.
We'll talk about your family, we'll talk about those issues after we've heard some music. But look, just a quick word before we go back to the music. If anything that we've been talking about has sort of triggered anything for you, and you would just like to talk to somebody about those things, then by all means give Lifeline a ring on 13 11 14. 13. Time is just gone 10:30 on this Wednesday morning when we're chatting to Lisa. Lisa's been at Dooalong for the last 4 months. Arrived there, well, as we were saying earlier, homeless and hopeless. That sums it up, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Sure does. How's life been treating you since you arrived at Dooalong?
It's magic.
Magic?
Yeah. I didn't think it could be like this just a few months down the track.
You were telling me off air, just as we were sort of one ear listening to the music, but you said you had no idea that when you went to Dooalong, had no idea that it was run by the Salvos, or you knew very little about their sort of Christian-based ministry or anything like that. So it all would have come to you as a bit of a shock.
Yes, it was. I didn't come from a religious background or have any experience with the church. The only thing I knew about the Salvos was the Red Shield appeal.
Yeah.
It was I didn't know how I'd cope with that, and if I'd be okay with it. I love it. They're just so giving and genuine.
Yeah.
I think I was so judgmental of addiction and what addicts must be that I would assume certainly if you were with church or connected to church, you wouldn't understand or you wouldn't get me, and or what my family had been through or different, and I was disappointed in myself. How could other people not be? But the people at DTC, and I go to Tuggerah Lakes.
Tuggerah Lake Church, the
yeah,
Salvation
church
Army.
On Sundays with Bill and Susanna. I love them.
Yeah.
They're just really genuine, loving, supportive people who don't mind where you've been. They're all about where you're going, and that really resonates with me.
Yeah, and the more you get to know about Christ and the stories that are written about him in the Bible, you realise that he did actually seek out the hurting and the broken, and went up to them and sort of put his arm around them and tried to help them. He didn't judge them or anything. He sought them out. Yeah,
and that's very much part of their message, and certainly it's not just their message, that is how they make us feel each Sunday, is that they're so inclusive and genuinely glad to see us.
Yeah. But it must have been a shock the first Wednesday evening, first chapel night for you.
I arrived on a Wednesday.
Oh, did you?
So
straight into chapel night.
So I will always remember that. Funny enough, Wednesday night's my favourite night now. I love chapel night. I love the music. I love watching people graduate is just awesome. I'm dreading my picture being up there because it's just the most terrific picture, but I can't wait at the same time because you don't recognise people.
Yeah. But look, it's not all a bed of roses. It's not all sort of laughter and sunshine, is it? There's pretty hard work that goes on out there as well. Pretty exhausting work, I would imagine. You, for example, you were telling us earlier about many, many traumatic events in your life, which I suppose now have got to be sort of processed for the first time, maybe.
Yeah, that's right, and that's again it. It sounds like saying all positives, but I really am just so grateful to be there because the treatment is so whole. It's it's your mind, it's your body, it's your emotional health, and it's your spiritual health, and it's intensive. I'd spent years running away from all of those things, and so now when I get up each day and you're doing it by 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning every day.
Yeah.
Some days I get to Thursday or Friday and I'm so tired because I've just been, learning all this stuff that I've been dodging and so uncomfortable with. And but that's part of what makes me so hopeful, is that I know that I'm really actively coming away each day thinking, that's so much was a part of my life, or I can really relate to how that then led to other stuff.
So when you look back at, if we can call it your previous life, do things start to make sense? You can start to see why you did certain things now that things are being explained to you about how your mind works and all the traumas that you've suffered?
Yeah, absolutely. I came to DTC thinking that mostly I was just completely grief-stricken after my brother's taking his own life, and that was definitely a huge part of it. But, with all the stuff that I've learned, that was really just the straw that broke the camel's back.
There was other stuff there before.
Yeah, there was a lot of other stuff there, but I just didn't know how to identify it, and it helps you to realise those patterns, to see these things that are happening rather than just seeing an event and coping or not coping. It's actually much more than that, and they play out over your lifetime, and as you fail to cope and to learn the skills to cope with those things, then when they happen, things keep repeating because you haven't developed those skills to cope.
And when this is pointed out to you in the group work and the one-to-one work, it must be quite a revelation. I can't find the right word, but you must look back at your previous life and it must seem like a movie running in the background, and now you're able to see why you did what you did when you did it.
Yeah, I think that's where, that, like when I was saying hopeful, it sort of empowers you to...
Empowers, that's it, yeah.
To be able to see and teaches you to be reflective. That were things that didn't sit well with me at all, because often it was associated with trauma and being uncomfortable and having to identify things that would either make me feel bad or like I'd disappointed someone, or even just that people that had disappointed me, and I didn't want to sit with that. And you have to be prepared to take yourself to that place.
And it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, but they're so loving in the way that it comes about that it's not a threatening environment. You're surrounded by people where we're all the same, where the only difference is our hair and our fingerprints.
Yeah.
But mostly, our stories are a little bit different, but we're much, much more similar than we are different.
Yeah, we're all human beings. We all have similar emotions and similar sort of aspirations.
Yeah, especially 100 addicts all living at the same place in group. You don't have to hide because everyone actually has lived most of your story.
Yeah, and we've talked to people in the past who say that community and those 100 plus addicts are all sort of in close proximity to each other. It does mean that when you're going through a tough time, you can recognise it in other people and you can come alongside them, and you may not have to say anything, just put an arm around their shoulder, maybe give them a hug, and that's the best medicine at that time that they need.
Yeah, it sounds cliche, but that's exactly right. It's being with people that get you. You feel you've spent so much time in isolation that you're connected again.
I fit in.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
It's a pretty good feeling.
Lisa's been telling us about her journey, which brought her to Dooalong 4 months ago, and we were just talking before the music break about the progress that's been made in those 4 months, and for the first time there is hope back in her life, hope for the future. Yeah, you were telling us you've got 2 boys. Are you still in contact with those two boys?
Yeah, I am. They're still a huge part of my life. Obviously, I've got a lot of work to do there. I'm very lucky for my family. My mum's, loves me dearly and is very supportive. So my youngest son, he's 16 and still at high school. He lives with my mum.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that. I'm able to go back now. I'm at the stage in the program where I can get day leave and weekend leave on the weekends. So I'm just working on rebuilding that trust in those relationships now is my focus, really.
Yeah. You've been there 4 months. You perhaps will be there another 4 months before you graduate. And so really, this is a very unfair question. You can't have any definite plans, I don't think, for the future. But what sort of direction would you like your life to go?
I'm looking for a whole brand new start.
Brand new?
Yeah. I came from a hospitality background, and that's not really conducive to recovery as being an alcoholic. So
the availability of drink and the hours and not a good
it's just asking for trouble. So that's not going to be part of the plan. Yeah. And mostly at the moment, I'm just really focused on recovery and reconnecting with my family and restarting my life.
Yeah, that's sensible. But it will be important, won't it, to when you do leave Dooalong, that you've got all those supports and those strategies that you're learning at the moment, so that when those tough times come again, because everybody has ups and downs in life, don't they? That your go-to response isn't the alcohol.
Yeah, that's part of active recovery, is being vigilant to the fact that I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. Remembering that I really can't run my own race because it doesn't end particularly well for me.
That's an interesting phrase, active recovery. Well, what do they mean by active recovery?
For me, active recovery is just utilising all of the help to, not sort of thinking, okay, X amount of time's gone by and I can do this now. It's about remembering each day what happens for me if I drink, what happens to my relationships and my life if I pick up. Being vigilant to the fact that I can never just have one drink or be a social drinker. That's completely off the table for me. And in fact, when I drink it, it leads to me picking up other stuff as well. So it's really I just can't go down that path.
So you can't be passive about this and think, oh, I've been 4 years without a drink, I'm okay, I'm cured now. It's an active thing, and you have to keep reminding yourself that, no, I can't have that one drink.
So I, for me personally, I'll stay on the antabuse for at least until I've got at least 2 or 3 years sober, and just build up that habits, healthy habits. Active recovery is about meetings, is about surrounding yourself with people where you remember where you've been, and what that, you don't romanticize that it's, it was only ever fun for a little while, and it was mostly very ugly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that I remember that.
Yeah.
And it's about spiritual, it's about asking for help and asking for guidance and strength and seeking support.
And as part of that healthy life, will that involve a church and a church family?
For me, it probably will.
Yes.
Just because it just brings that little bit of extra meaning to my life, where I can be a bit lost, and a lot can go on in my head, and I can get a bit overwhelmed by that. But when I'm in a space where it's just happening, and I can just be surrounded by grace and gratitude, I can leave, and it just grounds me.
Yeah.
Just grounds me and brings me back to just that moment and what's important.
And gives you that peace.
Yeah.
So Sunny was explaining to me at the weekend, or not explaining to me, but illustrating for me what the peace of God can look like. And we're doing it with the image of a hurricane. Those outer space sort of satellite views of the Earth and a hurricane, and right at the middle of it there is that centre of calm where so your life can be chaos and everything's being flung around in the hurricane, but the peace of God can give you that little oasis in the hurricane where you're safe, you're calm.
And I'm done with the hurricane bit, so I just want the peace.
Ask God to sort of, you deal with the hurricane, just leave me in that little oasis.
That's right. And one of the things that I was reading the other day, and I was sort of saying, God only gives you what you can handle, but by the same token, it's about what you can't handle, so that you can ask for help and you can see his work in your life.
Yeah.
And I really like that idea, that it's okay to hand it over sometimes, and to recognise you don't have all the answers, and that there's people that there's a bigger picture than yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's been lovely to speak to you, Lisa. You'll be going back, and what will you be doing? Last week Karen was in the laundry. What are you doing?
I do cleaning and make beds for all the newcomers. And
so the beds haven't been made today?
No, that's this afternoon. Andrea will have some chores for me. Thanks, Andrea.
They should give you the day off. You're tired. You've had a big day. You've had a big morning being on the radio. You're a star for the day. I think you should get the rest of the day off.
Yeah, no, that's community duties. It's called.
Okay, well, give all to everybody back at Dooalong, and thanks so much for coming in. And as God guided you to Dooalong in the way that He did, and so quickly without a waiting list, we trust that He does. And He does. He has a plan for your life, so and we know it's a good plan. So we just trust that He will reveal that to you, and you will follow that plan.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooalong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rema.cc.